back in the 90s, there was a trend of creating what is known as a mascot platformer. And this was due in part to the success of Nintendo's Mario and Sega's Sonic. And many of these came and went. You had popular ones such as, Mario and Sonic. And then, of course, you had the dregs. You had characters that stuck around and have a committed fan base, but are very poorly treated by their creators, like Crash Bandicoot and Spyro, which, in spite of their flaws, still have a very dedicated fan base. And then you have the bad ones. The ones that were solely existent in the bargain bins of your local KB Toys. I'm talking about games such as Bubsy and Zool. Now, what's strange about this is that, as time has gone on, people have developed a cult following for a lot of these old bad games. And honestly, I appreciate that. I like the fact that people have taken second looks at these games and decided, you know what, it's fun to enjoy things for what they are, even if they weren't the greatest thing at the time. That's something that I always appreciate. However, what is surprising is the fact that somehow, years after Bubsy was created, solely to be a Sonic the Hedgehog competitor, and basically an uninspired knockoff, they have managed to become better than Sonic the Hedgehog. And let me explain. As time has gone on, it has become more and more apparent that Sega truly and honestly does not care about their franchises. They will put no time, nor effort, nor budget into the games that truly deserve them, even if they're things that people care about. Like, people always have loved Sonic. Like, Sonic was the Genesis back in the day. They were Sega's main export. But what happened? Where did that go? Well, as time went on, Sega still attempted to do what they did with the Genesis Sonic games, which was rush them to absolute hell and back. There was very little time between Sonic 1 and Sonic 2 and Sonic 2 and Sonic 3. And I believe several of them were actually developed alongside each other, like Sega CD. So, as times went on and games got more expensive and more time-consuming to create, Sega was stuck in the past and continuously allowed their franchises to flounder because they just rushed things to completion. That way they could get a quick buck for holiday purchases. And clearly that has not gone well for them. The public opinion of Sonic was pretty sour prior to the movies. And it's not unreasonable. After incidents like the mediocrity of the 2000s, with games like Sonic Unleashed, Shadow the Hedgehog, and Sonic Colors, all being okay but not perfect, and then the complete and utter travesties that happened in the late 2000s and early 2010s, or actually through the 2010s wholly, with the very infamous Sonic 06, Sonic Boom, Rise of Lyric, and others. But that's not to say that they haven't had good games along the way. They've had good games like Sonic Mania, and, Sonic Generations. In fact, they recently re-released Sonic Generations with a whole new campaign. But that was only after Sonic Frontiers. Sonic Frontiers is an official game created by Sega that looks like Nintendo hired this man in 2014. It is Sonic the Hedgehog in the Unreal Engine, and boy howdy, does it look like it. It is a complete mishmash of conflicting art styles and concepts that frankly do not work well together. You have an overly realistic and technological world surrounded by cartoon hedgehogs. Which, on one hand, I don't mind it that much, however, it very much does take you out of the experience. Like, of course, Sonic's no stranger to doing this. They've done it in the past with games like Sonic 06, where, yes, the graphics were very poor at the time, but they were attempting to do Sonic in a realistic world, and I would have sworn that we tried that and determined it was a bad idea. But in spite of that, it was still a fun game that was still held back by technical issues and the like. It was primarily a visual thing, as opposed to being a bug-riddled mess like most of their games had been for years at that point. However, mediocrity appears to now be Sega's MO for Sonic the Hedgehog. In spite of me enjoying Sonic Superstars quite a bit, they also just aren't particularly, like, the most innovative or anything with the concepts or designs or mechanics. It's really similar to, you know, it's essentially Sonic the Hedgehog's version of New Super Mario Bros. Which New Super Mario Bros. Is good, and I will die on that hill, but it is a very traditional 2D platformer. A good one, but nothing special. And it did also have a lot of issues at launch, which is unfortunately par for the course with Sonic the Hedgehog. And then you have issues like Team Sonic Racing, which didn't include characters that are fairly huge in terms of Sonic Racing games, which would be the Babylon Rouges, or are they the Babylon Rouges or the Babylon Rogues? I can't remember. Either way, you have Jet the Hawk, Wave the Swallow, and Storm the Eagle. There we are. My brain's continued working there. And none of them were in Team Sonic Racing. And, you know, Team Sonic Racing was seen by pretty much everyone as a worse Sonic All-Stars Racing Transformed. Which sucks, because here's the thing, Sonic All-Stars Racing Transformed is actually a very good game. Sonic Racing games throughout the years have honestly been incredibly good. Like, even Sonic R, which has very slippery and weird controls, has an appeal to it, especially through its music. And now we're going into the new Sonic Racing game, where Sega could not be asked to put in voice acting for any of their DLC characters that the game is launching with. Why are we back in 2010? This is DLC on disc all over again. So in spite of the fact that Sega has the rights to use these characters, in fact, some of the characters are their own, like the Werehog. In spite of that, they did not put the time, effort, energy, or money into giving them voices. So there are characters that just make sound effects and nothing else, and they have no interactions with other characters, and that's it. And then, as I started this out, I mentioned Bubsy. Now, why did I mention Bubsy? Because for some reason, even though Bubsy was an absolute joke, knowing that they had quite possibly one of the worst games of all time in Bubsy 3D on the original PlayStation. And in spite of that, Bubsy as a franchise has been doing their damnedest to come back. And they're doing it well and with more effort than many other publishers that you would assume would do better. For instance, very recently, there was the announcement of a new 3D platformer Bubsy with a bunch of costumes, a bunch of new mechanics, and a bunch of different features that look exciting to people who are fans of 3D platforming as a genre. And it looked really good. Voice acting, costumes, tight platforming, and made by a reputable developer. And they also announced that they are going to be releasing a collection of Bubsy games, including Bubsy 3D with fixed controls. They are actively attempting to make their series better and rebrand it as something good. And they've had pretty decent games in the past. Over the past few years, there have been a few, I believe there has been 2 2D platformer Bubsy games released, and they're not bad. Nothing groundbreaking, but not bad. So, as we look at things right now, Spyro is dead in a ditch, unfortunately. And then you have Sonic, who can't be asked to put voice acting in a video game. And then you have Crash Bandicoot, who everything that has been made by their developers for the past several years has been nothing other than merchandise and AI-generated NFTs. Which, you know, that's definitely what people want, for sure. And Spyro is dead in a ditch. Unfortunately, in spite of Skylanders' early success, it did not last as long as they would have hoped, in spite of the fact that Skylanders games were quite good for what they were. Spyro is long since dead in a ditch. Oh, and Crash also had a pretty good racing game that was completely ruined by predatory microtransactions. Yippee! And then, you know, like, think of all of the famous mascot platformers right now. You got your Mario, you got your Sonic, you've got your Crash, you've got your Spyro, you've got your Mega Man. The only one of that list that is still making games and putting effort into them is Mario, which is a yikes. Sonic, I really do hope that Sega cleans up their act. Frontiers was definitely a step in the right direction. But they've stepped in the right direction several times in the past. They've made games like Sonic Colors, they've made games like Sonic Generations and Sonic Mania. But will it stay? Will it last? Who knows? I don't know. I mean, after Sonic Colors, we got Lost World and Sonic Boom, so who knows? Crash Bandicoot, found dead in a ditch. Spyro is right there alongside him, and Mega Man has not been seen in years. It's an honest-to-God shame, but for some reason, the people behind Bubsy care more than Capcom does about Mega Man. And of course, there are countless Mega Man games not created by Capcom, like 20XDX and 30XDX, which are really good. I highly recommend them. But at the same time, yeah, like, it sucks that these characters from back in the day just aren't getting the love that they deserve. There has been a resurgence in bringing back a lot of these older mascot platformers. One of my favorite games of all time is Klonoa, and Klonoa recently had a remake and re-release on modern platforms, similar to Crash with the Insane Trilogy, Spyro's Reignited Trilogy, and I guess now Bubsy. But None of these are signs that the games are going to continue, unfortunately. As good as the Crash Insane trilogy was and how good Crash 4 is, Crash as a series is essentially dead. And I don't expect to see anything more from Klonoa. It makes me happy to see him, but I don't expect there to be really anything new from that. But to me, it's just oddly bizarre where you see all of these franchises that people truly loved and cared about just getting tossed to the wayside by developers who couldn't care less. And then you had developers with games that are infamous that people didn't care about, and yet they're doing their absolute best with them because they want to create something good for people, because they have a passion for these characters no matter their reputation. And honestly, I really respect that. And I have to respect people who go out of their way to do something new with a character or series that hasn't gotten the love that it deserves. Hey, who knows? Maybe we'll see a new Gex game after the recent re-release of those, but I'm not gonna hold my breath for that one. Even if a lot of people bought that specifically because of Scott the Woz. But yeah, I can't say that I am surprised by the fact that a bunch of corporations are mishandling their properties. I'm just more surprised that there are people who care about franchises that you wouldn't expect and deciding to make it better. Like, I really do respect that. That is an insane level of commitment. And heck, maybe Bubsy is finally gonna live up to what they initially wanted him to be. Maybe they'll get a cartoon like Pac-Man and Sonic and fucking Mega Man. But the Mega Man one was cancelled, I'm pretty sure. Everything, to be fair, if it has Mega Man in it and it wasn't released already, it's cancelled. Like, let's be honest. I have no fucking idea why Capcom hates Mega Man as much as they do, but dear lord, they hate that man. It's just sad. I like Mega Man, I really do, but you know who doesn't like Mega Man? Capcom. Damn, they hit and I didn't. Okay. Oh, hi, bitch! They have slowly made the minigun quite a bit better. I'm not dealing with that right now. Not today. Oh, hi. Okay, that dude has to come over here to me. Oh, that's Cuddle Team Leader. Shit, that's not who I want. Where is the real one? There you are. Okay. Okay, fuck it. Okay. Literally no clue where this dickhead is. Fucking moron.